also that the Metropolitan Police have said there is no investigation at this time. Well, joining me is the ex-series editor of BBC's Question Time and former head of presentation for David Cameron, Nick Pisani, of BBC. You've worked with the BBC for many years. There have been some awful scandals over the years, you know, Savile, Harris, Stuart Hall, you name it. This one. It's difficult now quite to know what to believe.
Very difficult.
Clearly a rift between, and the young person is 20. Unusual, isn't it, for the parents to be speaking in public on behalf of a 20-year-old?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that the central allegation was that the guy used the money raised, the alleged £35,000, to buy illegal hard drugs. And that's his mother talking about their child. So that in itself seemed a bit weird. But I think the alarm first went off this morning that the story may not be quite as it appears when Sir Craig Oliver, who is David Cameron's Director of Communications, he said that we as the public should be concerned that we haven't yet heard the full story. And then Kelvin Mackenzie, the very successful editor of The Sun across the 1980s, you know, when he was selling, or under his editorship, 4 or 5 million copies a day, he gave an interview to the BBC World at One programme today, and he said facts may yet come out that show that this story is not as it appears to be, and we'll see it through a very different light. Now, there'll be a lot of people with a lot of egg on their faces if what he says and what the lawyer's statement about on behalf of this younger person, if they prove to be correct, there's going to be a lot of people who've been having a go at the BBC on the presumption that what the Sun says, and the Sun's journalism is definitely on the line, is factually correct. Well, it may not be, it seems.
So what do the Sun do in a position like this?
Well, the Sun have made a rather strange statement saying that, you know, it's now for the BBC to investigate. We've put the facts before them. The BBC claim, and the mother claims, that fresh evidence was put before them. But the truth is, we don't know.
This doesn't stack up, though, does it? The Sun's claim doesn't stack up because this has now all been reported to the Metropolitan Police, and the Metropolitan Police says there is no investigation at this time. Presumably, if the Met Police had seen anything they were concerned about, they would have acted in some way.
Well, I assume that statement would be followed by one tonight saying that we've now opened an official inquiry, having had their conversations with the BBC. But they, I imagine, were shown evidence this morning that the Sun claims to be so solid that they've dominated the headlines of their own publication and almost every other for the last 3 days.
No, they have. Well, if they're wrong...
I mean, if they're wrong, this is going to be very, very serious. It's going to be serious for a lot of organisations. And the BBC may turn out to have handled this absolutely correctly. They may have been completely right in not releasing the name of the presenter who's alleged to have been at the centre of the storm. Because
this is interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, the Cliff Richard case, in which the BBC had a helicopter filming the police raiding Cliff Richard's house. And all of that has led on, hasn't it, to Supreme Court judgments that actually the presumption of innocence before guilt is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the BBC, going back to the Cliff Richard story, as I recall, were landed in serious trouble in court because he contested what they said. And they were forced to apologise. They were forced to say they were wrong. Now, they have a duty of care to their employees. And if the allegations turn out to be made up or fake, they would have been absolutely right not to have released this guy's name, or whoever the presenter is. And this presenter's supposedly a high-profile presenter.
The trouble is, Nick, in the modern world, the internet, Twitter, is what it is.
Yeah.
What recourse is there? It's
very little. I mean, Jeremy Vine was making that very point when he was saying, you know, not me. And Nicky Campbell was talking about seeking legal advice on defamation. I'm not sure that there is any comeback, save to say that I think the vast majority of the population will not know who this person is if it turns out that they are the subject of false or at least misleading claims. Because the mother is also not saying, I think, that there is no relationship, only that there was nothing illegal about the relationship. You have to ask, what is motivating these people? Drugs are involved, it seems, by the mother's own confession.
And the mother claims, and the son claimed, not to have paid the mother.
Yeah, well,
which again seems very strange.
Yes, I mean, the whole thing seems very strange because the BBC was supposedly told back in May, and then it was only last Thursday that Tim Davie, the Director General, was told, because they were shown new supporting evidence that they took very seriously. And now we have the Sun with a rather wishy-washy statement saying, well, it's for the BBC to prove that what we're saying is not Correct.
And I think the onus is perhaps the other way round.
Well, just think of the consequences if the tabloid... This feels like a pre-Leveson story. Do you remember the types back in the early 20s when anything goes?
Oh,
the names were straight out.
You were some of those
you were on the
stories.
receiving end of more than one of them. So, I just think right now, we don't know. But in the next 24 hours, I think either the BBC will have been judged to have handled this very well or very badly. And if it turns out that they're the subject of some kind of hoax, again, they'll have been shown to handle it quite well. We mustn't forget, television, media, it attracts celebrity, it attracts people who want to be notorious. So if you make up an allegation, a serious allegation, and you go forward to the broadcaster and put this allegation to them, and there's no supporting evidence, and they've released the name of the person, well, that's going to make the BBC look terrible, and their employees are going to feel very unsafe.
Nick Pisani are very high for both sides of it.
They are very high.
Moral of the story, folks at home, is do not believe every single rumour you see or hear. I'm going to be back to you in a moment.